Or can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I don't know why. Normally I've got like 20 people already here. But just could be everybody's late. I see Ron Prindle's here. Hey Ron, how are you? Here comes.
Yeah, okay. I see him coming in through the waiting room.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing anything wrong.
No, you're in the right place.
Thank you. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Denise Joyner is here. Hey guys, how are you? Are you staying on, Laura, with us?
Say that again.
Are you staying on today or are you?
No, I have to jump for another meeting.
All good. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it.
Are you getting the notifications to admit people from the waiting room? There's
Right.
nobody, there's none right now, but,
Okay. So I was going to say, I did see them as they were coming in. Yes.
Okay.
And Ron's. So I will make sure though that it still lists me as a host. So we should be in good shape.
Yep.
Cool. Denise, how's your day today? Oh,
It's good.
there you are.
It's all good. From Atlanta, pouring down rain.
Oh, I'll take that over the snow though. Well, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of rain, so.
Yeah, it's supposed to. When you guys get snow, we get rain. And it's cold rain.
Yeah. Yeah, we're heading to the West Coast on Friday, and it's supposed to be a little chilly out there anyway. So we'll see. Beth, how are you?
I am normally in the listing tracker, but I have one of my mentees in this class,
Okay.
and so I'm years ago, 100 years ago, I used to teach prospecting.
I love it.
And so I just, I told her we had to listen to this, and I'm going to go back and listen to the previous ones because I signed up for this as well as the listing part.
And don't forget, every one of these tracks repeats. So when we get to our kind of quarterly mark here at the end of March and we finish the full 12-week cycle of sessions, there's about a 1-week break, right? We also have new people that will enter sessions at that point in time, but at that point, we will restart the 12-week prospecting sessions. So you are also able to still get to a live version, you know, and follow it in sequence all the way through.
Well, I particularly wanted to hear this cold call one.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a few different, I mean, when we say techniques, a lot of it comes down to approach. And I'll reiterate things, obviously, from our previous calls too today. And then in the accountability session, if you guys are planning on attending that, we typically, that's where we'll do a little bit more casework. I'll give more examples. I'll give more, you know, dive-ins. We'll talk more about what to say and scripting, things like that.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Denise. Appreciate it.
Well, and I was just talking to her. I said, now you make sure you're on here.
I love it. I love it. And
she said,
Joyce,
yeah,
hello.
I'm
Mike
ready.
Rivers, hello. I see Beth. Hello. Beth, where are you from again? Where are you located?
In Ellicott City. It's out in between DC and Baltimore.
Got it. Okay. All right. So that either makes you a Ravens fan, so it's not an Eagles fan.
Well, we have family in Pennsylvania.
The Super Bowl today.
Commanders, Ravens.
I gotcha. All right. All right. Let's see here. Gigi, hello. Cynthia, hello. Here comes Keith Frazier. I love it. What's that logo you got on your shirt, Mike?
It's our team logo, the Rivers Group.
Oh, I love it. That's cool. I like that.
Appreciate it.
I like that a lot. Keith, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm well. Of yourself?
Rocking and rolling. It's
Good.
Wednesday,
Yes.
middle of the week, ready to like keep it going. Got in a huge argument with my teenager about AI this morning. Huge argument. It was actually a continuation from an argument last night with my teenager, who, by the way, is vehemently against AI and
Really?
wants nothing to do with it. And we were talking about, pros and cons of other things. And she's like, it's just dangerous. I'm like, social media is dangerous. You don't have a problem with that.
Right.
We got all up in it today. Let's see here. Come Stephen, Alice, hello. All right, we got everybody kind of jumping on here. We will get started in just a few minutes. If you are just joining us, today's session is all about cold calling techniques. We're going to talk about approaches. I'm going to highlight a couple different types of, I'll call it like list clients. One thing I am not going to go into today, just because and I'll talk about why, but I'm not going to go into a lot of resolution around list sources or where to get the best lists, just because what I have found in having a national approach is that every time I give a recommendation for a list or a source to get a list, it ends up not working in that area for someone in California versus New York, etc. So it is very easy for you to find list sources, and we will talk about that. But I don't want to give my opinions on what's good, bad, right, or wrong when it comes to these lists, especially in the cold market, because we'll talk about why it really doesn't matter as long as the lists actually have accuracy. Let's see here. Let a few more people in while we're kicking off. Hello, hello, hello. I see Dave. What's up, man? Steven's driving. Please be safe. Who else we got? Awesome. Jordan's in. Cool. Stuart Dudley. Hello. Cece Cook. Welcome. Shwanda. How are you? How are you? Love that logo too. You guys got some cool team logos. All right, we give about another 30 seconds here, and then we will get running. Put in the chat today, if you're just joining us, put in the chat today one of the things that you feel like has been your biggest epiphany so far within this prospecting track. This is week 6 out of 12. What is one thing so far where you're like, this has been etched in my brain? I'd love to see just what you guys are taking from these particular sessions, and it's helpful for everybody else to see too what you guys are liking and what is sticking. So if you can today, 10 calls a day, love that, Mike. Just the consistency. Unfortunately, phone calls are important. Yes. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Getting to know. I love learning the amount of times and frequencies needed to stay on top of mind. Yep. Tracking, keeping doing it, calling, meeting people. Absolutely. Frequency of contact. And I thought you meant HIA and not HIV. I got you on that one, Bill. Regarding contacting my sphere of influence, frequency of contact, love it. These are all great things, guys. Really good points. I'm glad a lot of this is sticking, because these are major pain points that I wanted to communicate. So reaching out in many ways, call, text, notes, just doing it, getting over the fear. We're going to continue that conversation today with Cold. Excellent. All right. Well, let me go ahead and I'll start. There's a few people that have not joined us in the past, so welcome. My name is Mike Walker. I am one of our national coaches here at Chirag Shah Coaching. I've been in the real estate industries for about 23 years. I have taught all across the country on topics of sales, negotiation, mindset, prospecting, team development, brokerage development, you name it. So there's a lot of things and a lot of questions that, I feel like I've got a good bearing on. Feel free to, continue with your questioning today. If you do have questions, again, as we kind of kick off, please put them in the chat to start with. It'll just be easier instead of stopping the presentation and having you guys, have to wait. We'll either tackle the questions today at the end, or we will tackle questions as we jump into the accountability group. So I am going to turn off the ability really quickly here for people to unmute themselves, and I will turn that back on as we get towards the end of class today. So let's go ahead and share my screen. Let's jump right into cold calling techniques. I don't need to do a bio, just did that with you guys. I will address this though with cold calling, and it's similar to sphere of influence, but with sphere of influence, I'm reaching out and I'm constantly conversing with people that I either know, I've met, I have some form of relationship with. And so the roller coaster of prospecting with sphere of influence is not nearly the same as what it feels like with cold calling. Cold calling can feel, guys, like this just adventure of just free falling, where you go hundreds of phone calls sometimes where you get no response, no answers, or they're all rejections. And then all of a sudden you go through these clusters of people that are like, yes, I'd love to talk with you. Right. And so there's like this joy in this experience. And then there's just this doubt and this endless game of just dialing numbers. And so I want to start with the two most important facets. And that is the fact that cold calling, it's a numbers game first. Like, it doesn't matter the technique I give you. It doesn't matter the approach I'm going to talk about today. It is a numbers game first. So if you can rock out with the numbers and the consistency that is required for you guys to be really, really supportive in a calling atmosphere, that means, finding a way to make it a part of your schedule. You're going to be in a great position to have success with cold calling. The second thing is that it's a confidence game. It's a confidence game. You are going to get less than 10 seconds when you're interfacing with somebody, right? To make an impression, to build a point. You have to be a little bit more confident in the game of cold calling to be successful than you do with sphere of influence, because sphere of influence has likely met you. You might be building a relationship or have a relationship, so you can get by with a little bit more of a casual tone. When it comes to cold calling, confidence, guys, it's so important. I can't stress that enough. So we're going to go through a couple different situations. We're going to talk about a variety of ways to just, make this a success for yourself. But at the end of the day, I want you guys to be able to ask questions. And so I know I'm not going to hit on every cold call approach today. But I do think that it will be something that you guys find successful and helpful for you. Okay. So important attributes to remember today. These are never not important. These are things that we've talked about for the last 5 weeks. Consistency is still key. Your beingness, your personality, your energy, your confidence, all of those things are still super important. High impact activity conversion is still super important in all conversion of leads, right? So getting to a point where you are suggesting some form of activity that serves as your follow-up with a prospect, with a cold call, something of that nature, will always be important. And then following up, right? You got to treat these leads just like any other leads that come in. It's follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. And we talked a lot about follow-up a few weeks ago. Okay, so these are things that will always stay consistent in every single prospecting atmosphere that we discuss. Here are the situations I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about expireds. I'm going to talk about likely to sells. I'm going to talk about for sale by owners, and I'm going to talk about vacant owner lists. And really, for vacant owners, that could also be subjective to investment property or investment owner lists. Okay, so we're going to talk about these today. These are the situational techniques and approaches I'm going to give you. And by first, in order to learn about this, we're going to talk about kind of their objections and what the main prospect on these lists might be facing. It's really important that whenever you pick up a list, right? So whether you're going through your likely to sells through your system, whether you're like, hey, I'm gonna buy a list of homeowners in one area, whether it's expireds, for sale by owners, doesn't matter what it is. You have to understand what the person is experiencing, because you need to plan for these situations. Like if I were to say expired listing, right? Think about your typical expired listing for a minute. An owner just spent maybe 3 months, 6 months, 12 months with a real estate professional trying to sell in their marketplace, right? And they were unsuccessful. And so think about, like, how do they perceive the situation? Forget for a minute, like, what you think about it, what you think they did wrong, or what you think the other agent may have done, you know, better or worse, etc. Think about what they think went wrong, right? So these are two issues that most, you could call them objections, you could call them issues that most expired listings are experiencing. Number one, in their opinion, they had a bad experience with their last agent or agents in general, right? That is going to be a mindset that you may encounter when you make cold calls to expired listings, right? They also think that, well, I might just have to wait now, right? If they didn't line up another agent right away, where they fired this one and now they're listed with the new one, they might just think, well, you know what, it's unsellable. Maybe there was an issue that came up in an inspection. Maybe there was something that they, you know, were given feedback that they had to fix. But oftentimes expired listings are at this point where they're like, I think we're just going to wait for now because the market, you know, maybe it'll get better, or until we fix this blank issue, which might be problematic, etc. So I want you to be conscious anytime you pick up and start to approach a list, that there is a set of objections and mindsets that are already being experienced by that target prospect, okay? The other thing I want you to take into consideration, especially with expired listings, is that they are overrun by agents and marketing attempts, overrun by it, as much as for sale by owners, right? We're going to deal with both of those a lot. But expired listings are getting calls, they're getting flyers, they're getting mailers, they're getting emails, they're getting bombarded by agents just like you. And all of them are trying to talk about how great their services are and how they're going to do better than the last person. Your job or goal is to stand out, is to not be that let me sell you cold kind of individuals, because it falls flat. It falls flat, right? So what do we do? How's our approach? What does it look like? Keep in mind also with this, guys, I'm going to say some things here, especially on expired listings. And some of you are going to go, okay, well, but Mike, I just reached out to a expired listing or for sale by owner or whatever it was, and I did this and it worked. And it might be counter to what I'm saying worked. And I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. So I want you to think about your judgments as we go through this as well, of what works for you, what hasn't worked for you, because that's going to be an important part of this, I promise, okay? So here's some approaches. So when it comes to expired listings, the techniques, one of the techniques is to really hone in on price. It's a sensitive facet. We all know that at a certain price, every single property on planet Earth will sell, right? Eventually, when a property gets low enough, it just sells. And so most, not all, but most expired listings have some form of a pricing problem, right? And that could be, you know, they weren't positioned correctly, pictures didn't do it justice. It depends on kind of the issue, but oftentimes we're dealing with a pricing problem, right? You can attempt on a cold call to object, to try to tell them why their price is terrible, or, well, that seems high, or you can go that route. And I can promise you guys, you're going to end up just hitting up against a wall. If the consumer were to say, hey, I think we're priced wrong, that's a different story, but most of them won't. My objection or my obstacle that I'm dealing with forces a technique where in the beginning, I'm going to agree with their pricing right off the bat. In fact, I might even lead my phone call with, hey, I see that you were listed for 6 months at $658,000. And I got to be honest, I'm looking at your previous listing. I don't understand why it didn't sell. It looks like it was priced correctly. Now, they might respond with, Mike, it wasn't priced correctly, right? Like, we think XYZ happened. Or what it's going to open the door to was, we agree, what we really think our agent did wrong was XYZ. Either way, my entire goal, guys, is to understand and acknowledge their frustrations of their previous experience. But here's the catch. Without telling them that I'm going to do it differently. Customer service does not sell homes. Price and placement does. Does that make sense? So what I want to do is I want to give always a prospect, especially if I get somebody on the phone on cold calling, I want to give them a chance again to divulge, like, what do you think went wrong? Right. And that might also look like me calling and just saying, hey, this is Mike with, Compass, and I'm an expert in your area. I noticed you were for sale. It doesn't look like the property sold. Are you still listed? I know they're not still listed, but I'm asking anyways. And they're like, no, we actually just took it off the market. I don't think we're going to sell right now. Thanks for your phone call. And I'll say, no worries. Right. But I'm just curious. It looks like it was priced correctly. Why, in your opinion, didn't it sell? I'm just kind of curious because I do business in this area. I'm just wondering what your feedback was. And I want to get into a conversation about those frustrations, right? I also want to oftentimes try to reconnect to their why, because if somebody's in a position of saying, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be the time frame for us. Really, we didn't get a lot of showings, etc. I think the market and interest rates have really pushed us over. What you need to hear is they were just told that they didn't sell because the market is bad, or the buyers and the 7% interest rates, or whatever it is. That was the reason they were given. Because 6 months ago when they listed, they had a sheer desire to sell this property, period. That was not their formulated opinion 6 months ago. And so that was something that they were provided with as the reasons for why they didn't sell. Okay. And so I want to reconnect them back to their why were they selling in the first place, and really talk about, well, why were you selling? Because I actually think that there's a few things that we could do. And this is where then we get into suggested activity, right? We start to look at how do we convert this call now to an activity. I say, well, I think there's a few things we could look at that actually would get you that price. And would you mind if I, did a little bit of a performance report or a CMA or whatever you want to call it, and dropped it by your house here in the next couple of days? I'd love to show you what I think we could do. I have some ideas. Okay. Even if you don't have any ideas, right? That's when you go back to your team, your members, your managers, your whatever, and you come up with some ideas, right? But the sell on the call is not, I'm going to do a better job. It's not, hey, my clients, sell for 50% higher than most people in this neighborhood, or, I see everything that your agent did wrong. None of that. It's tell me your frustrations. Let me see if I can put together something that would actually spark you back to connecting with that why. Why did you want to sell? Accomplishing the goals, and maybe even accomplishing the price that you were at. At the end of the day, it just gives me the opportunity to have a more intelligent and listening conversation, or listening-based conversation with this prospect, possibly at their home, in order for us to then really connect with the relationship and me to start to gain some trust. Okay. It's the whole point of conversion, right? The point of conversion is not to convert to a client. The point of conversion is to convert to a next activity where I can be more invested and they are more invested with me in the conversation and continuing the relationship. That's the best thing that you can ask for from cold calls. Okay. So techniques with expireds, it's about appeasing the mind. It's about not giving a rebuttal, but it's about intriguing people with creativity and reconnecting them to the why did you decide to sell in the first place? Because that is still possible in today's market. That's the dream that we are selling. Okay. When we jump to likely to sells, likely to sells are obviously something pretty unique within your organization and within Compass in general. But one of the things that I want to talk about as a unique indicator is that you want to almost treat a likely to sell like a warm lead within your social sphere, because you do have information based on how they aggregate a likely to sell, right? That they are getting closer to wanting to pull the trigger, which means that my law of recency becomes a really, really, really high probability, and it becomes really important for me. And just to go back on what the law of recency was for everyone, the law of recency suggests that a homeowner, a prospect, right, buyer or seller, will choose an agent, not necessarily based on their skill set, their likeliness, their experience, and all those things, but rather based on who crossed their peripheral, who did they think about or see or correlate with real estate and success in the most recent category of time, the law of recency. And so what we want to do here, right, is we want to start to look at what are the common objectives, right? If someone is not necessarily ready to sell, but they're close, what are some scenarios that they're facing so that we can come up with some techniques and some approaches. So objections that we hear a lot with likely to sells is that we have a few more years until our kids are out of school or blank happens. And then I think we'll consider selling. Like they're close. Like our data and everything shows that they're close, either based on time of ownership, based on when they move, based on the population demographics, whatever it is. And so we know that they might not quite be there, and there might be a very specific circumstance on why they're not selling yet. So like, for instance, I got a likely to sell call from a Compass agent the other day. From a Compass agent, not someone in this program. I got a likely to sell call because my wife and I's name popped up on a likely to sell list within our neighborhood and community. And I answered the phone call and the agent's like, hey, I'm so-and-so from Compass. And I was like, I honestly thought it was a call for Chirag Shah Coaching. And he's like, I noticed that you're a homeowner. And I was like, oh my God, this is a prospecting call. And this just happened, you guys. And he went into it and I said, I said, honestly, and I didn't talk about my real estate background or that I, have a license or anything of that nature. I basically just said, I've got an oldest who is a freshman in high school, and we likely aren't going to be moving for another 3 to 4 years, right? When she finishes high school. And that was it. The person hung up. Gone. They're like, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If ever this happens, please keep me in mind. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep you in mind 4 years from now. What did that individual do wrong? Right? They didn't put me in a funnel. I answered a call. Holy cow. I answered a cold call, right? There was no suggested activity. There was nothing in regards to like, hey, could I do this for you? Or let's set you up on staying, connected with your marketplace so that over the next couple of years, you can start setting an expectation. Nothing, right? The other thing that we get as far as objections is I think we are going to wait now for the market to get better until, again, we fix the X issue, which is similar to the ho-hum is me answer that we get from expired listings. So that approach can be pretty similar. So when we look at techniques, number one, this is what the agent should have done with me. They should have put me on a long-term follow-up funnel that involved a high impact strategy. What that means is offer to show me 6-month comparisons and get me on this expectation that you're going to follow up with me every 6 months, right? It's the long game, guys. This is relationships. You want business that's always coming in? It's going to start now, 3 years from now, right? But that way I start to learn who this person is. I start to learn their opinion. They get permission now to touch base with me on an annual basis. I'm going to end up hopefully in their nurturing sequence, right? Hopefully they're going to be calling me every 6 to 8 weeks, just touching base, but they have now permission to come every 6 months and drop me off a report. So it can start to set the expectation. Put these people in a funnel. Does that make sense? Right? Don't think because they're not a now buyer or now seller that they're just off the board and that you don't have to think about them. Do you know how much money and time we spend to get one lead in our sphere of influence that matches something of that caliber where someone says, yeah, I'm probably going to be selling and it's probably going to be around this date? You'd lock them in immediately. You'd be like, great, have dinner at my house every 6 months. Let's get to know each other, right? The other attribute or technique with likely to sells is talk about selling now, regardless of what the hurdle is, the issue is, the setback is, and see if they would humor renting back, right? The creativity of still taking advantage of this higher price market right now and then not needing though to purchase, not needing to deal with the interest rates, etc. Not to mention, guys, I know a lot of buyers that are really excited to buy something if they know like there's a tenant right away that's going to pay for the next 3 years. Super, super, super advantageous situation. So these are techniques and offerings that are really good and useful within that likely to sell category. Okay. Let's go to the next one here. For sale by owners. I used to do a full 3-week class just on FSBOs because I think this is This is one of the most overmarketed and misunderstood types of cold leads in real estate, period. And my biggest tip here, and I'm going to accentuate it, I'm going to sell it, all of this, is don't sell yourself. Don't sell yourself, right? There are a few objections that we're going to deal with, and I'm going to deal with the first two the most significantly. I can't afford to pay, or I don't want to pay an agent to list my home. It is still one of the top reasons for sale by owners go for sale by owner, okay? And number two reason is I have background or experience in selling real estate, even if it was my own or I've done it before, and I believe I can do it on my own, right? So, and it's the same thing, guys, when we see sometimes agents that are selling their own home. Like it ends up, especially when it's not their region, but they're like, I'm licensed, I don't want to pay somebody else. Like, these are reasons why people go for sale by owner. So I will tell you this when it comes to the techniques, and I'm gonna talk about these two techniques first. Actually, why don't I talk about what happens typically with agents' minds? So rewind for a minute. I used to do this exercise in rooms of like 80 people, and I would break up the entire room into groups of 4 or 5 people, right? Because getting people in line with an approach is tough, even when it's 2 people. But 4 or 5 people with the group was enough. And I would ask each of the groups to basically compete. I'd say, I want you each to write me an email, right? Write me an email as a for sale by owner that you believe would convert me into wanting to call you, interview you, reach out to you, okay? And all these groups would get together and all the mindsets would come in. And I swear to God, guys, hand to God, I would get like 30 of almost the exact same email. Like, not a lot of creativity, not a lot of deviation. All of them would start with their accolades. I'm so-and-so, I am the #1 agent. I've sold this many homes. I've done this much business in your area, etc. I can do this for you. And then they would use fear. You're a for sale by owner. You're going to do worse at this. You can't do this. You're terrible at this. You're going to get less than the normal person. All of these fear elements would be mixed into these emails. And everywhere I would go, city after city, this is the standard approach that agents take to reach out to a for sale by owner. Now, there's some sideline ones, you know, the approach of, well, I have a buyer, right? Either A, that's a lie, or B, it's not something that you can replicate every single property. Either one of those reasons, I take it off the board as not a real technique or approach, because you're either now being unethical or you're not able to repeat and replicate that approach for sale by owners, which requires consistency and numbers and all that thing, right? So what I learned was most for sale by owners are going to end up doing what after the first 30 to 60 days? Does anybody know? They're going to end up bailing on the entire idea, because what they're going to get a lot of calls on is, number one, they're going to get a ton of real estate agents. They're going to get a ton of investors. They're going to get a ton of people that are trying to take advantage of them. They're going to get a ton of just 100% buyers, people looking for no down payments, people looking for owner carries. They're going to get just all of that. They're not going to get a lot of real buyers. And so after 30, 60, 90 days, right, they're already tired of all of these fake showings, false promises, etc., from the audience that they attracted. Okay. So when this happens, what do? Well, then they go back to the drawing board, right? Now, some of them in that 30, 60, 90 days end up doing what? Successfully selling the property and actually becoming the statistic that makes others want to sell by themselves, which is that there is a fairly high percentage, higher than you would expect, like in the 20s, right, of successful for sale by owners that do sell the property on their own. So here's what I have found. Any approach that just offers to try to basically out-promote, outsell, you know, out-deviate, fear them into hiring you, falls flat on the face. That means think about how many posters they're getting, mailers they're getting, phone calls they're getting of, I'm so-and-so in your neighborhood and I'm the best at doing whatever it is that I think I can do. And what I found to work is the selfless approach. There is nothing more powerful than this. And I'm going to show you the two outcomes based on the two things that will happen with for sale by owners that are really positive here. Okay. Number one, the true magic of the selfless assist is that these situations, when I offer to help them sell with no strings attached, I offer you showing assistance, I offer you lists, I offer you preparation, I offer you how to pre-qual, all of those different things. What happens is in that first 30 to 60 to 90 days, right? If you don't sell, you're hiring me. You're hiring me. You're basically on a 90-day funnel with me, right? If you do sell, guess who the only agent on the planet is that you're going to refer and tell all of your friends about? It's going to be me, because you're going to feel guilty that I helped you with all of this and you were successful. Does that make sense? Same thing with offering consultation or advice to these individuals, no strings attached. So when I'm calling to for sale by owner, hey, it's Mike Walker, I'm with Compass, right? I actually live and reside in this neighborhood. I noticed that you're selling on your own, and I think that's awesome, right? For me, I want you to get the highest priced, I want you to get the highest price sale for your home, because that impacts my clients, that impacts me as a homeowner, it impacts everybody in my life, right? If you don't get the best price, that also impacts me and everyone else. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to offer you for free, no strings attached. I'm not trying to take your listing. I'd like to drop off X, Y, or Z. Pick something. I get to go to their house. I'm going to drop off this little pre-designed kit, right? Here's a checklist. Here's disclosures. Here's whatever it is, right? Here's my card. I want you to feel free to call me if you need anything as you start to sell your home. Guys, it's going to get difficult for them. The likelihood of them being successful is low. And so they will then eventually call me and say, Mike, would you mind just listening to this? Or can we talk? I will start to get down to the real roots of problems is what will happen. Okay. So it's a little bit longer of approach, guys, but it is fantastic. Works really well. Vacant owners, and I know I'm tight on time. Vacant owners is often, it's seen sometimes just simply as an investment owner because they're not using the property likely as their primary residence. One thing that you're dealing with the most with these types of individuals, if you call them, is that they are not as emotionally connected to the property. So this really has to be more data makes sense type sell. And a lot of the approaches or techniques that we see in converting these individuals is data driven. It's get straight to the point. Are you interested in selling or renting this property right now? I noticed that it's not a property it looks like you reside in, right? If they're like, well, we've been kind of like kicking it around, not sure. Great. I'd love to provide a performance analysis. I'd love to compare the sale and profit to a rent comparison. And I'd love to get that to you in some way, shape, or form. Or they might say, well, we already are renting the property. Great. Have you looked at the performance of that rent and what that might mean to an investor to purchase it? Or is it something that you're looking to long-term hold? And if they're long-term hold, I'm putting them on a nurturing campaign with myself, right? Keep in mind, anybody who I connect with is an opportunity to add to my sphere of influence and begin to then constantly provide value to throughout the year, okay? So in overview, when cold calling, remember, confidence and mindset are key. You got to approach these situations with the confidence that you have real solutions for people and that people want to talk with you, right? Have a strong introduction, get right to the point. My name is so-and-so. This is why I'm calling. Don't beat around the bush with cold calling, right? Practice active listening. Don't try to sell people. In fact, leave your value proposition at the door, right? Explain how you can approach and potentially solve their problems. And then with your friends, with your colleagues, with your office, with your team, practice objection handling. It will help build more of that confidence. Always have a suggested activity that you're going to introduce to offer within a phone call, and then follow up, follow up, follow up. Sorry, I'm a few minutes over today, guys. What I'm going to do is this. Let me look here. Did reach out to this client. I'm just want to make sure there are any major questions. Exactly what do you think should be in that drop-off kit? Keith, great question. I think it'd be a number of things, but think about where they get stuck. Preparing the property, right, for like showings, a showing checklist, information I should be collecting from showings, how to pre-qual a buyer and what documents to ask for because they get took there, dangers and what to look out for when it comes to investor scams, etc. All of those things, maybe even a pre-advertising kit of like, here's some things you should put together so that it's helpful for social media and other people. All of those are great items. Okay. And I can jump more into that for sale by owner one also when we jump into our accountability side. Let me go ahead, guys, and just put the accountability. Let me put the actual link real quick into our chat. I'll give you guys a minute here to click on over there, and I will be there in just a second. Looking forward to seeing you guys in there. Talk to you soon.